Hey there, everyone. I'm Linda Ceriello and Greg Dember's here. We are What is Metamodern Conversations. And in this video, we're going to be just talking amongst the two of us about our previous video, which was a conversation with Stephanie Lepp about her work, and super interesting. And there was just several threads that we almost didn't quite get to follow up on as much as we could have liked to. So we're going to do that. And we also realized at the end of that video that the conversation about what metamodern is versus or adjacent to integral or integral theory is a whole other conversation that we need to get to as well. However, we're not going to do that in this video because we decided it will take an entire video of its own to go there. So stay tuned for that. But before we start talking about the Stephanie Lepp conversation, we also wanted to just chat a little bit about the recent United States inauguration.
Yeah, I thought that the inauguration, if I can go out on a limb, it seemed like a meta-modern inauguration, at least aesthetically, or in its vibe, kind of. It seemed like a scene from a Wes Anderson film. And then also the whole Bernie Sanders meme.
Cold Bernie.
Yeah, cold Bernie. There was something metamodern in the way that everybody from all parts of the political spectrum would get in on it together. So whether you're a Bernie fan or a Bernie hater, like the Bernie fans were laughing with him, kind of in that way that they always did. And the Bernie haters might have been laughing at him, but everybody was kind of getting in on this sort of meta-modern awesomeness. I'm assuming that people that are watching this, have seen these memes, but just in case, what we're talking about are, the main one that really went all over the place was Bernie sitting in his chair, with his like oversized mittens and just kind of having this sort of like grumpy old guy, like let's get on with it kind of vibe going.
Or people projected that onto him because that's part of the sort of metamodern awesome of Bernie.
Yeah, exactly. Bernie's just kind of going through life being himself, and then we make him into the character. And then then there's also the photo where he's entering the inauguration and kind of like looking around for his chair, and he's got like this big old manila envelope and a couple checks and stuff. There was like a meme where somebody has that, and then I don't remember exactly what they say, but they're like, Bernie's got some plans today or something, like, Bernie's got big plans.
Living the inauguration.
Yeah.
Attend the inauguration, mail some checks, Costco if time.
Right. Bernie's to-do list. Yeah. Did you have any favorite?
Oh, the memes of Bernie were so funny. I enjoyed them so much, from the perspective of metamodern awesome, like you're saying. And one of my favorite things is when it started spinning off into album covers. Mm-hmm. And so the cold Bernie would be inserted into the front of an album. And one of my favorites there was George Harrison's All Things Must Pass. And somebody perfectly lettered in Medicare for All Things Must Pass. Okay. And instead of George Harrison in the very center of the album cover, you have Bernie. And that one just totally cracked me up. And I also like the fact that he was asked on Seth Meyers on late night whether he knew about the memes. I think it was the very next day. And he said, oh, yeah, I know about them. And characteristically of Bernie, of course, he said he thought they were funny. And what he really liked about them was that because of the mittens, which were made by someone he knows in Vermont, a woman who's a school teacher and a very nice person. Okay. Yeah, and he said they were getting a lot of attention, of course, for the mittens, and that the woman was just like, yeah, I have a life. I don't have time to make you mittens. I'm so sorry. It's like, And it was just it
And
put a really
Bernie,
nice,
so Bernie was telling about that, like
yeah, he was telling about that on late night.
yeah.
It just put a really nice cap on it. And then, of course, you probably saw that Bernie decided to go ahead and just take advantage of the crazy widespread nature of this meme and put it on like t-shirts and stuff. And then all the proceeds from all the t-shirts, which sold out apparently,
Mm,
then went back to the Vermont, food bank or something
mm,
like that. I don't
mm.
remember which organization got the proceeds from it. But anyways, it just kind of came full circle in a way that seemed pretty metamodern. I agree with you on that. But let's
Yeah,
talk about the look of it too. The Wes Anderson.
yeah, yeah. It's just like all of these elements came, like any one of these elements might not have done it, or you might say, well, that's always in an inauguration, but adding them all up, it had this Wes Anderson-y feel. So you're starting with the backdrop of the Washington D.C. architecture, that classical. Yeah, this is like very symmetrical, very kind of bombastic and epic, and that was sort of behind all of the scenes. And in Wes Anderson's style and across all of his movies, he has these very symmetrical, hyper designed kind of sets. Um, and then, I mean, I'm not a big fashion observer, but it kind of seemed like a lot of the women, all the way from Jill Biden and Michelle Obama, um, and down to various people whose names we don't even know. They were all kind of wearing the. How would you describe like?
It's been described as like this monochromatic look.
Yeah.
So a green dress with a green coat on top with green boots or whatever. Yeah, and that's been noticed in a few articles I've seen out there where um, you have this monochromatic look, and then also a way that each one of them put their own kind of style into
Mhm.
it. Each of these women who are, Joe Biden's grandchildren and children, and Kamala Harris and Doug Emhoff's children, and they each, no more so, I would say, than what's her name, Ella Emhoff,
Mhm.
in her look, and just highlighting her because we're talking metamodernism. She definitely kind of rocks a look that gives you
Totally.
a feeling, a very contemporary with its retroness. Somebody called it her art school kid style.
Yes.
And apparently she also makes her own clothing, and so she definitely gave off kind of, flaunting the quirky kind of style.
Yeah. I mean, as soon as I saw her walk in to the scene, I was curious as to who that was because she didn't look like your typical politician's family person.
Hmm.
Um,
With their individuality washed out of them. Yeah, she was definitely individuality on parade. Is that kind of what you mean?
yeah, but individuality but that still is like relates to and is included in the more normcore family.
Yeah, but we did really enjoy the style that she brought to it. And just before we get off onto other things, though,
Mm. The capper was then Bernie. Like you see the backdrop, and then you see the monochromatic colors, and then you also see the military pageantry, and there was just this feeling of it was a non-aggressive kind of military presence, like
yeah,
they felt like they were there to protect you and almost nurture you, and at least to entertain you, not to threaten or impress or
or
assert.
show kind of their might per
Yeah,
se. Like, when you see the Minutemen costumes and all the that little portion of the parade that walks along, and they're playing these
yeah,
very like diminutive little piccolos, and that obviously comes off as something non-threatening, or it seems to. But also it did remove the how Wes Anderson usually employs some kind of nods to tradition. So not only the classical style of the buildings and the symmetry, but also the either military presence or something with uniforms will usually be in effect there. So he
Pageantry.
can juxtapose. Pardon me?
Pageantry.
Pageantry, yeah, but he likes to juxtapose a traditional kind of form of pageantry with, you know, we would say from a metamodern, you know, lens, with a newer register of, you know, connecting with personal interiority, which we're getting to in a minute. But
oh, and all I just wanted to say though was you've got all of that backdrop, and then Bernie walks in, you know, and Bernie's already his own metamodern meme. And he walks into the scene, and then there was just this point when the wind blew on Joe Biden's hair, and it kind of like popped up in a cowlick, and I suddenly saw Joe Biden as this sort of like boy, kind of like boyish, kind of Boy Scout, Eagle Scout kind of guy, you know, and
you really had the metamodern glasses on right there. I would say. Joe Biden as Eagle Scout. It's not that big of a stretch, actually. So.
Right. I don't think so.
Plus, this is stuff that we kind of want to feel, and we want to be invited to feel that the military is not there to threaten us, and you know, that all these, you know, beautiful people in their fabulous outfits, feeling very fresh and very, you know, just sparkling new, like the little sparkles on Ella Emhoff's jacket, and just these little touches that made you just feel like, oh, this is something new. This is ushering in something different.
Yeah. And did everybody just kind of show up sharing a sensibility, or was there some planner or designer, you know, that told all the women wear monocolors and feel free to be yourself? And you know, I don't know, you know,
I don't know. Yeah, if there was a stylist for the whole thing, it'd be a bit surprising, but but if anybody out there happens to know the answer to that, we would like to know. So should we move on?
Okay.
So let's take a little break, and then we'll come back and we'll hit our other topics related to the Stephanie Lepp video.
Okay, sounds good.
See you in a minute.
We are back, and we're going to pick up our conversation now. A little bit of commentary on our previous video, which was a conversation with conceptual artist Stephanie Lepp, who her most recent project she calls Deep Reckonings. And really, you know, you should watch the other video to really find out what that's all about. But if you didn't watch the video, just briefly, what she does is she uses deep fake technology, where she can take video footage of people and then make it look and sound like they're saying things they didn't say. And she does this with some high profile figures who are, let's just say, controversial. And she scripts for them to say things that she believes would be healing for an audience to hear, and for them to, you know, to kind of go through the realizations she has them say. What's interesting about her work is that she's very explicit that it's fake. So usually with deep fake technology, you know, they're trying to trick the viewer, and maybe kind of pull one over on the subjects even. But in this case, you know, she doesn't leave anybody thinking that the people really said that, but it still kind of has this effect on the viewer.
Yeah. Speaking about the effects on the viewer, just backing up maybe a second to her motivations, what I gleaned from reading, you know, interviews of her and talking with her ourselves, is that she had a couple of questions that are her sort of her that guide her inquiry. And one of them was she asked herself, who are the people on earth who, if they had a personal, you know, reckoning, as she calls it, that would possibly translate into massive social change or more pro-social behavior. But what we thought was really interesting, I remember us talking about that there's this capaciousness in the sense that it's not just about one person who needs to rectify their behavior and get in line and do the right thing, but it's something that's available for everyone, for all of us, the viewer or the listener. So like whether you despise the person or you agree with the views of that person, there's something in it in terms of a sense of that we're able to understand some very human trait that possibly all of us contain or that we're all seeking, that motivated that person's action. And another one of her questions, I'll get around to the comment on it in just a minute. And she asked this really nice question, I think: what is possible by virtue of seeing ourselves clearly? So for us, we wanted to explore whether that maps onto the sense of metamodern protection of interiority, as we sometimes call it. And Greg, both of us had made the point that her project allows this feeling of, kind of similar to what I just said with a twist, that we're all in this thing together, that we're kind of all invited in to step into what our ethical responsibilities are, via this kind of cultural imaginary that includes both truth telling and also fakery, but not in the pejorative sense necessarily. So why don't we look at a clip where she's talking about truthiness and fakiness and what they're deployed in service of.
Yeah, it's not like truth or it's not modern or metamodern. It's under what circumstances is which way of treating truth helpful for doing whatever it is that we're trying to do. Mm-hmm. And whatever it is we're trying to do may not always be tell the truth. Whatever it is we're trying to do may be help Alex Jones, or encourage or whatever, get Alex Jones to stop broadcasting lies and misinformation into our public infosphere, you know, like, so it's, you know, sometimes what is most helpful for achieving our goal is truth. Sometimes it might be what we could call a purposeful fiction, is that is explicit about its truthness or its fakery, or at least like uses fakery in service of something else, which isn't, you know, just straight up deceit.
So her question here is interesting on several levels. Can something be fake but also true, or can fakery be harnessed in service of something that's true? So it's like these things are in tension with one another.
What makes Stephanie's work seem metamodern to me, as I think I've mentioned, is that she is explicit that it's fake, and the result of that is that everybody's in on it. Everybody's together. The audience, in some sense, gets to experience some delight or something of that sort. She's not tricking anybody. If the deceit goes unacknowledged, that kind of seems more like a postmodern phenomenon.
Yeah, like trying to pull the wool over or suggest that there's no real reality here.
Yeah, and you know, as you said, we're gonna really explore the difference between metamodernism and integral in another video. But I think the way Stephanie kind of portrayed integral was that from the perspective of integralism, there are circumstances where it can be ethical to lie. And
I wouldn't say that she's going quite that far with it. I don't get that from her project, but we can just...
Oh, I don't think that's in this project. I just want to if that is something, I just want to distinguish that that's not what metamodernism.
That's not how we work with it.
That's, yeah.
Yeah. So a second point about her, what we saw in that clip is this idea of something being in service of a bigger aspiration. I just wanted to make a point because I thought it was interesting that here her aspiration is big, right? It's huge. It's how can we, affect social change. But in a metamodern reading, you could also think about something being in service of a very small or a very localized aspiration. Mm-hmm. In metamodern aesthetics, as we often remark, there's this play between the epic and the tiny. And sometimes the metamodern cultural products are seen as such because they've reduced meaning to a very tiny moment or a very small a moment of humanness. So it's a way, in a sense, of pairing the large and the tiny with her project, where you can have this grand, serious, high stakes, save the world kind of project, but also a very personal one that really has to do with your private feelings.
Yeah.
And also this gets at why we often resist metamodernism being thought of as a social change project. So first of all, because it's not about improving people. So it's not necessarily about giving people chances to change or, it's not metamodern to hold compassion along with consequences, as I think her work does. Mm-hmm. But it's metamodern to appreciate the interiority of the other in a way that doesn't simply blot out the existence of the harmful or bad actor, push them out, but tries again for a means to see what led them to do what they did at minimum. So that makes me think about artists who, I think if metamodernism were this social change project, and there are all these quote unquote metamodern artists out there, or people doing work that looks to us to be metamodern, I would imagine that I would feel very much like, as an artist, like I'm not going to be told that I need to be, about a certain kind of social change or be a kind of do-gooder of a certain stripe for my art to matter, right. So I think I wouldn't want an artist to conclude that, if they don't paint or act or write about a certain kind of, it's usually progressive, social change, that they're not metamodern, they're not doing metamodern art or something, or that they don't like metamodernism. Mm. If they feel like it binds them to a certain outcome. I feel like right there, we see that there's this perversion of categories that takes us in the wrong direction for metamodernism.
Yeah, and it's not that art that does have a really explicit social purpose, that could be metamodern too.
It could, yeah. If aesthetically, if it is of a piece with metamodern aesthetics, yeah.
Yeah, so, like metamodernism is not some particular political doctrine, and it's not some other political doctrine, and metamodernism is also not stridently anti-political or apolitical, but it can be, it can be any given political direction. It can be no political direction. It can be purposely against politics. It could be oblivious. It's just not. Metamodernism is not tied to any particular stance or relationship towards politics or social change or anything like that.
Right. What it couldn't be.
Yeah.
Is sort of an attack on an individual point of view.
Right.
Without any sense of that person or person's point of view having its own humanity.
Yeah, its own story. What that reminds me of is earlier today I was watching the newest Contrapoints video.
Oh yeah.
And Contrapoints, Stephanie does some work interpreting Contrapoints, which we talked about in the other.
Mm-hmm. Really like her video commentaries on Contrapoints.
Yeah. So in this video, Contrapoints is talking about J.K. Rowling, and since Contrapoints is a trans woman, and J.K. Rowling has been controversial because many have felt that she's made statements that are transphobic, and other people feel that J.K. Rowling has been unfairly canceled. I was really interested to get Contrapoints' take on it, because as I said, Contrapoints herself is a trans woman, but Contrapoints has also been very critical of cancel culture and has videos about that. So I wanted to see what she was going to say about it. And in fact, I have to pull this up so I can read it correctly. So she says, so what I want to do in this video is take Joanne, so she's calling J.K. Rowling Joanne throughout the entire video, because I guess that's her real name. So what I want to do in this video is take Joanne's pain seriously and treat her as a complex human being, while also being critical of the things she said about the transgender question.
Well, I've got a really loud storm going on here, and you probably can hear it. It's raining super hard.
Oh, is that what that is? Okay.
Yeah. So it's probably a good time to sign off now.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks for watching, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.